The history of the last 32 years that I've been the director of NIAID will tell the next administration that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they will be faced with the challenges that their predecessors were faced with.
You stay up late at night to watch marathons of Fear Factor. Have you put it on your bucket list to one day be a contestant so that Joe Rogan can look you in the eye and say, obviously, fear is not a factor for you? You can admit it. Everyone has some crazy fantasy about being a badass regardless of reality. And according to the Data Institute at the University of San Francisco, pandemics are historically associated with fear, confusion, and despair. And with as many as 24% of even atheists found admitting to turning to prayer at the beginning of the pandemic, very few can probably say after 2 years of pandemic that they did not come face to face with the reality with which Shakespeare's Hamlet had an epiphany. Death doth make cowards of us all. But the country is reopening again. Mandates on social distancing are being rolled back. Restaurants are opening up again. Over 80% have been vaccinated with at least one dose of COVID-19 countermeasures, and even progressives, statistically the highest educated by credential, are ready to return to their exciting and adventurous lives. And you probably had a long while to think about what new challenges that you might want to tackle as a contestant on Fear Factor, where there are some pretty interesting challenges involving heights, water stunts, creepy crawlers, and high-speed vehicles. But in an age of adrenaline junkies, skydivers, swimmers, and swimmers with sharks, base jumping, taking selfies while dangling from skyscrapers, and bungee jumpers, what do Americans really fear the most? Hello, my name is Major Mike Webb, and in a former life, I was what they describe as a snake eater in the Army, as a special operations soldier in the elite 75th Ranger Regiment, light infantry airborne qualified rapid deployment force that is ready to fight tonight anywhere in the world within just 18 hours. And after that, I was assigned as a staff officer in strategic counterintelligence, serving as the most junior commissioned officer to have ever served as the operations officer for all U.S. Army strategic counterintelligence in the continental United States. Literally a dream job assignment, wherein other duties as assigned, as we say, I had the unique opportunity to do something before a pandemic, actually gaining experience as a biological warfare planner, knowledge that has been used to date in at least 3 cases in the pandemic that have gone all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and I'm not even a lawyer. So that is my background of experience with the novel coronavirus, and very much more I can neither confirm nor deny, let's say. But after 2 years of pandemic crisis, the answer of what Americans fear the most may or may not surprise you. And if you thought it was getting an injection, which may be your fear, that is actually at number 6 in the top 13, according to the National Gallup Poll in March 2001. Let me give you a hint. They shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. Getting warm? Did you think evangelical Christians in Appalachia? Well, let's just say for now that did not quite make the Gallup poll list. However, more than the dark, going to the doctor, thunder and lightning, dogs, flying on a plane, mice, spiders, claustrophobia, being trapped in small places, and heights. In fact, second only to, and this may surprise you, public speaking. Yes, some 40% of Americans are actually terrified of standing up in front of a crowd of strangers and opening their mouths to speak, which may explain why so many people are trying to date online, and which also definitely reduces the field of competition for stand-up comics on amateur night, and leadership, where sometimes you have to stand up and say something. The thing that Americans fear the most is the serpent. It was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden, tempting Eve to taste of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, according to the account in Genesis of the Abrahamic faith tradition. And in a pandemic, who has the most knowledge? The son of Apollo, human princess Coronus, Asclepius, the god, the Greek demigod of medicine. According to mythology, he was able to restore the health of the sick and bring the dead back to life. And one of the earliest depictions of the medical symbol is the staff of Asclepius, a single staff with no wings and only one snake. But if you were to ask your doctor today, he would probably tell you about the winged version, or caduceus, the staff that was carried by the Olympian god Hermes of war, the god of war in Greek mythology, the messenger between the gods and the humans, which explains why he might need wings to go back and forth, and a guide to the underworld, which explains the staff. Hermes was the patron of travelers, which some attribute to the connection to medicine as appropriate because doctors of the olden days had to travel great distances by foot in order to visit their patients back in the days of doctors making house calls. Now we just have doctors without borders. According to one story, the caduceus was a gift from Apollo, who was known for his healing attributes, to Hermes, while another version has the caduceus being given as a gift from Zeus, the king of the gods, which Hermes had used to separate two fighting snakes, which then coiled themselves around the staff and then remained there forever in balanced harmony. But if you have been busy in pandemic trying to keep informed by videos, you may have heard about another tempting serpentine tale, plucked from what may sound like a tree of knowledge and from a doctor who was convinced that poisonous snake venom from king cobras of the genus Ophidiophobia, giving rise to the root of Ophidiophobia, according to doctors, as the Cleveland Clinic, affecting 1 in 10 American adults and 1 in 5 teenagers. And one of the most common specific phobias are the killers in the pandemic, poisoning populations through the water supply. True or false? Certainly convenient to have the thing that Americans fear the most be the new fear in the pandemic. Is the venom of the king cobra lethal? Ranked number 15 on the list of most poisonous snakes in the world, just edging out the eastern diamondback rattlesnake. Well, yes, a median lethal dose for the Indian and Chinese king cobra venoms is between 50 and 0.5 milligrams per gram, or milliliters, or between 0.01 tablespoons and 1/16 of a tablespoon. Just a dab will do you. But if it was in the water supply, it would be diluted greatly and would require a large quantity that would be equally lethal to an entire population, not just a select few. But that is not the end of the story, because on February 19th, 2020, Wei Ji, Wei Wang, Zhang Fang Zhou, Zhongji Zai, and Xing Guang Li published an article for the April 2020 issue of the Journal of Medical Virology titled Cross-Species Transmission of the Newly Identified Coronavirus 2019-nCoV, in which they had observed that the current outbreak of the viral pneumonia in the city of Wuhan, China, was caused by a novel coronavirus designated as 2019-nCoV by the World Health Organization, as determined by sequencing the viral RNA genome, looking under an electron microscope. They had reported that many initial patients were exposed to wildlife animals at the Hunan seafood wholesale market, where poultry, snake, bats, and other farm animals were also sold, and had intended to conduct an investigation to locate the elusive still animal reservoir responsible for being the source of the disease that had, by that date, been attributed to over 75,000 cases in China, almost 55,000 of which had been examined for trace contacts by the joint mission between the Beijing government and the World Health Organization, and which had found 80% of those examined experiencing nothing worse than mild pneumonia, but also a disease that was most lethal for those over the age of 65. By 2012, when the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS virus, had emerged in the Arabian Peninsula, there was known to science a total of 3,137 coronaviruses that affected only mammals, and 3,298 that affected birds. And in that year, an additional 7 Delta coronaviruses had been discovered for the first time in pigs and birds, as noted in a report that had appeared also in the Journal of Medical Virology and published by a team of scientists that had included Patrick C.Y. Wu and Susanna K.P. Lau, names that may be familiar because in April 2020, they had been a part of a team that had published an article in Emergent Infectious Disease, one of 2 major research journals for the CDC, titled Possible Bat Origin of Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2. And a lot of important details were included inside that report regarding Chinese cultivation of SARS-like coronaviruses dating back before the pandemic. And in Yunnan, the location of a military-grade virology lab. And as reported by Justina Milik and Katarzyna Blicharz-Damanska in an article that had appeared not online in the September 2018 issue for the Journal of Veterinary Research until December 10th, 2018, titled Coronaviruses in Avian Species, Review with Focus on Epidemiology and Diagnosis in Wild Birds. Coronaviruses, COVs, are a large group of enveloped viruses with a single-strand RNA genome, which continuously circulate in mammals and birds and pose a threat to livestock, companion animals, and humans. Bottom line, coronaviruses are limited to infections on avian and mammalian species. In fact, some believe that this is where they came from. They were large genomes that, because of their size, tended to be unstable, eventually became more stable through enzymatic activity around the core that limits its mutation ability and keeps it from falling apart. And regardless of whether poultry, snakes, bats, and other farm animals were also sold at the Hunan wholesale seafood market, the probability, based on past experience, that a snake or any other reptilian species might have been a potential reservoir would have been very far remote. Why in the world would a snake have a coronavirus? It simply doesn't make any sense, historically. However, these scientists pressed on in their investigation, nonetheless, and reported surprisingly by February 19, 2020, our findings suggest that 2019 NCOV has most similar genetic information with bat coronavirus and most similar codon language usage bias with snake. Taken together, our results suggest that homologous recombination may occur and contribute to the 2019 NCOV cross-species transmission. And just one day later, the World Health Organization would publish their findings based upon a robust examination of almost 56,000 laboratory-confirmed cases, 19 times more cases than were known to be present in the entire United States by March 15, 2020, when the nation's only physician serving as a state governor had begun his lockdowns, which had been advised against in that report. And also as far back as 2006 by the World Health Organization. After they examined properly the tracer contacts for those 56,000, in which they found less than 5% in secondary attack rate, which is 4 times too low to validate the presence of a disease being transmitted from person to person, and 12 times too low to set off a super spreader event. So there we have snake peptides inserted in a biological agent that lacks the capability to be transmitted from person to person, and a fact that was known even before a pandemic declaration on March 11, 2020. But perhaps people are afraid to speak. The second highest fear amongst Americans. As observed last year by Fatah Sharifi and Fatama Laraba Jabari in their article that had appeared in September issue of Protein Journal titled Bioactive Molecules Derived from Snake Venoms with Therapeutic Potential for the Treatment of Thrombocardiovascular Disorders Associated with COVID-19. With regards to COVID-19 pandemic, some primary care physicians reported that the pathogenesis of COVID-19 brought about by the SARS-CoV-2 is initiated by high hypoxemia in vasculatures and leads to ARDS, acute respiratory disease syndrome. Collapsed lungs due to many blocked veins by microembolism are believed to be the final cause of death for many infected individuals. Moreover, while even in this report, scientists were beginning to explore the pharmacological uses of snake venoms in the treatment of COVID-19, they also confirmed that the excess of coagulation causing thrombosis is reported after snake bites, and also for COVID-19 due to increased concentration of coagulation factors or hyperactivation of platelets. As a retired Intel guy and Army Ranger, I follow the science. And what does the science say? We have a virus that attacks a respiratory tract cell like a ranger team clearing a room, equipped with a spike protein with the ability to breach and penetrate deeply and aided by HIV inserts that serve like flash or concussion grenades, suppressing the immune response. The virials ranging between 0.25 and 0.50 microns, according to the CAR transmission study, have been published as a preprint by John A. Lipnicki and others titled Isolation of SARS-CoV-2 from the Air in CAR driven by a COVID patient with mild illness, and finally published in peer-reviewed form on April 24, 2021 for the July issue of the International Journal of Infectious Disease, are actually too large for a coronavirus, which has evolved over time to develop a stabilized core around the center of the genome to prevent the largest viruses from falling apart under their own mass, and also limiting the range of potential mutation. But these larger than normal virials were found in the study to also present what appeared to be an ionized gain of function that enabled the virials to mass in formation to direct an optimum chance to defeat even military-grade protection in sufficient exposure. Just the ionization of these larger than normal virials is not likely to occur in nature. And with all of these unique capabilities and natural anomalies, if this was a zoonotically evolved pathogen, a God in heaven simply does not like mankind. And honestly, if human choices have not served us well, according to Rochelle Walensky, and if Dr. Fauci has said this virus has fooled us before, I really can't blame a perfect God in heaven for feeling that way. This briefing is unclassified, as you were. My name is Major Mike Reverend. By God, I am running for U.S. Congress. This year resolved to do the right thing, and we shall make America great again. Honest. Carry on. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.
There's one message that I want to leave with you today based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak.